Breaking news: just 1 minute ago, Prince William stepped onto the Dubai Climate Summit stage without warning, leaving Prime Minister Starmer frozen, hand trembling, and face drained of color. His opening words tore through the room, calling out government hypocrisy, private jets, heated palaces, and ordinary pensioners forced to choose between food and warmth. Cameras captured the stunned silence as world leaders gasped. Inside Downing Street, cabinet panic is spreading like wildfire, emergency meetings are underway, and the next 72 hours could rewrite British politics forever. Subscribe now, history is happening in real time. 3 days before the Dubai summit, Prime Minister Starmer unveiled a sweeping climate regulation that would force every British household to install heat pumps by 2027. The cost: £3,000 per home. His message was blunt and uncompromising: every household must sacrifice for our climate future. But the rhetoric masked a brutal reality. This mandate disproportionately targeted the most vulnerable: pensioners, retirees, and low-income families who could barely keep their homes warm. There were no exemptions, no transitional support, no acknowledgement of decades of savings or frugal living. To millions, it felt less like climate leadership and more like moral authoritarianism. Public frustration had already been simmering before William even took the stage. Social media and local news outlets buzzed with outrage, highlighting stories of elderly citizens rationing food and heat, wondering how they could possibly comply. The announcement crossed a line, exposing a deep disconnect between Westminster policymakers and the lived experience of ordinary Britons. And it was this human cost that planted the seeds of what would become a historic royal intervention. For Prince William, witnessing families being told they must pay thousands, or face freezing homes, was morally unacceptable. It was the catalyst that would push him to break decades of royal protocol, speak out publicly, and confront a government more focused on ideology than compassion. In the weeks leading up to the Dubai summit, Prince William quietly visited communities across Cornwall, Yorkshire, and Scotland. He sat in freezing living rooms with pensioners wrapped in layers of coats, watched veterans clutching blankets, and listened to widows explaining how they chose between heating and food. These weren't abstract statistics, they were real people, people who had served their country and contributed to society, now struggling to survive under policies imposed from Westminster. David Harrison, 72, a former Royal Navy engineer, and Margaret Foster, 81, a widow from Newcastle, were just two of countless citizens facing impossible choices. Every story he heard added weight to a growing moral imperative. The contrast between the comfort of government offices and the cold, dimly lit homes of these families struck William with full force. He saw the consequences of political decisions in human terms: eyes, hands, and hearts chilled by neglect. It was in these quiet, unpublicized visits that he made the fateful decision: he would speak publicly, and he would not ask permission. For the first time in decades, a royal would defy convention to defend the vulnerable, placing moral responsibility above tradition. Stakes had never been higher. 7 minutes of truth would soon collide with the authority of an elected prime minister, setting the stage for a confrontation that would captivate the world. At exactly 2:17 p.m. Dubai time, Prince William stepped onto the stage at the Global Climate Leadership Forum. Cameras caught every moment, every deliberate movement, as the room collectively held its breath. His 7-minute speech was a masterclass in calculated defiance. He began by recounting stories of real people, ordinary citizens struggling to survive under policies that demanded impossible sacrifices. The tension in the room grew line by line, crescendoing when William held up a photograph of Margaret Foster, 81, a widow from Newcastle, explaining how she wore 3 coats indoors simply to stay warm, and now faced the impossible cost of a £3,000 heat pump. "This is not climate leadership," he said. "This is cruelty." Delegates gasped. The moral weight of his words reverberated across the hall. Cameras captured Starmer in the front row, frozen, water glass trembling in his hand, completely immobilized. William didn't pause for applause, he allowed the silence to emphasize the gravity of the moment. As he finished, delegates from 47 nations rose in a spontaneous standing ovation. Journalists scribbled frantically, knowing history was unfolding in real time. 7 minutes of moral clarity had humiliated the Prime Minister in front of the world. The global spotlight had shifted, and for a fleeting moment, a prince's compassion outshone the authority of elected power. This wasn't just a speech, it was a live, televised indictment of government negligence, one that would echo through British politics for decades. The reaction was immediate, unprecedented, and global. French President Emmanuel Macron leaned toward his aide, nodding in approval. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz clapped for a full 30 seconds, ignoring typical protocol. Even delegates from countries with no monarchy, nations that had abolished royal families decades ago, stood in recognition of William's moral courage. The optics could not have been clearer. An unelected prince had captivated the world stage while the elected prime minister sat paralyzed, humiliated, and visibly fuming. Media outlets instantly recognized the historic significance. BBC reporters whispered that this was the most direct royal criticism of government policy in decades, while the Telegraph's political correspondents tweeted live, calling it a moment Starmer's own MPs had been too afraid to deliver. Social media erupted, memes circulated, and hashtags began trending almost instantly. Starmer was forced to clap mechanically, his expression a mask of barely contained rage, while muttering words about unelected royals under his breath. Diplomatic observers described the scene as shocking and unprecedented, emphasizing the stark contrast between moral authority and political power. Within hours, the damage was declared irreversible. The Prime Minister's credibility had been questioned in front of the global stage, and the narrative was clear: the world was watching a future king hold the government accountable, exposing hypocrisy and igniting a political firestorm that would not easily subside. The human cost of Starmer's heat pump mandate became painfully clear as pensioners began speaking out. David Harrison, a 72-year-old former Royal Navy engineer from Portsmouth, explained how the policy would consume his entire year's savings. "I served 30 years defending this country," he said, voice cracking. "Now my own government treats me like I'm the enemy." Across the nation, stories like his were multiplied by millions. Janet Morrison, 69, a retired nurse from Glasgow, described wearing her late husband's winter coat indoors since October because her pension couldn't stretch to cover both heating and food. She cried as she told reporters, "I saved lives. Now I feel disposable." These weren't isolated incidents. Britain has 4.2 million pensioners living below the poverty line, forced to ration heating, skip meals, and prioritize prescriptions over electricity bills. Meanwhile, contrast this with MPs' lavish spending, second homes costing thousands, chauffeured cars, and heating expenses in the high thousands per month. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband alone expensed nearly £3,000 for heating his second property last month. The outrage was amplified on social media. TikTok videos of frozen pensioners, juxtaposed with MPs' lavish lifestyles, went viral, garnering millions of views. #DefendOurPensioners trended for hours, while memes cast Starmer as a callous figure indifferent to the very people Labour claimed to represent. For a party built on working-class credibility, the fallout was devastating, public trust was crumbling, and ordinary citizens had found a moral voice in the future king, leaving Starmer isolated, exposed, and on the defensive. The situation escalated further when Buckingham Palace issued a statement that shocked both political observers and the public. Carefully worded yet devastating, the statement commended Prince William for his compassionate advocacy on behalf of vulnerable communities, and emphasized that climate policy must balance environmental necessity with social justice and human dignity. Every phrase was deliberate. Palace insiders revealed that King Charles personally edited the statement 7 times, stripping diplomatic language and inserting the term human dignity as a moral line in the sand. The message was clear: the Crown sided with the people over government policy. Senior courtiers described the king as furious, not at William's speech, but at Starmer's dismissive response. The heat pump mandate was labeled economically illiterate and morally indefensible, signaling a direct critique of Labour's decision-making. This public endorsement of the prince's stance was unprecedented in modern British history and immediately framed as a constitutional intervention of the highest order. Observers highlighted the significance: for the first time in decades, the monarchy openly weighed in on domestic policy, prioritizing moral authority over political neutrality. News outlets and social media platforms erupted with analysis and commentary, emphasizing the symbolic power shift. For Starmer, the Crown's support of William underscored his growing isolation, while for citizens, it validated their outrage. The message was unmistakable: the monarchy was defending ordinary people when their government had failed, elevating a 7-minute speech into a moment that could redefine British politics and royal influence for years to come. The fallout from Prince William's speech was immediate, brutal, and far-reaching. Prime Minister Starmer compounded the crisis with his now infamous remark dismissing concerns as coming from unelected royals who've never had to work a day in their lives. The words were not just tone-deaf, they became the spark that ignited a nationwide and global backlash. Within hours, financial markets reacted violently. Green energy stocks lost billions, with major renewable companies seeing share prices plummet between 12% and 18% in a single trading session. Centrica dropped 9.4%, Scottish Power 11.2%, and the FTSE 100 shed 87 points in just 90 minutes, marking the steepest climate policy-related decline in 5 years. Polling data mirrored the financial shock. Labour's support collapsed by 6 points, while Prince William emerged as the more trusted figure on ordinary citizens' needs. Social media erupted. Hashtags like #DefendOurPensioners, #StarmerOut, and #WilliamSpeaks flooded every platform, generating millions of posts and memes that mocked Starmer's indifference while glorifying William's moral clarity. Protests erupted across 23 cities, with pensioners and concerned citizens taking to the streets, demanding change. Labour MPs began distancing themselves publicly, and whispers of a no-confidence motion started circulating. The message was unmistakable: Starmer's political credibility was crumbling, and the British public had seized the narrative, amplifying the prince's moral authority while leaving the government scrambling to contain the fallout. Behind the closed doors of Downing Street, the atmosphere was one of chaos, paranoia, and recrimination. Cabinet meetings devolved into screaming matches, with ministers blaming each other for failing to anticipate the fallout from Prince William's speech. Leaked WhatsApp messages revealed the extent of panic. Shadow cabinet members questioned whether Starmer had become a liability beyond repair. One message read, "He's lost the room, lost the public, and now he's lost a battle with a prince. How does he recover?" Another simply stated, "He doesn't. We need to move fast before this becomes terminal for all of us." Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who had publicly backed the heat pump policy, went eerily quiet, cancelling interviews and avoiding public appearances. Sources indicate she is positioning herself as the reasonable alternative, the steady hand capable of restoring Labour's credibility. Meanwhile, Starmer remained isolated, defensive, and increasingly stubborn, his only public comment a terse reiteration that the government stood by its climate commitments. Leaked documents revealed that Downing Street had 36 hours advance notice of William's planned speech, yet Starmer's team did nothing, doubling down instead. Constitutional experts sounded alarms, suggesting that the Prime Minister's refusal to engage with royal concern could be interpreted as reckless. The narrative of arrogance and detachment solidified, a leader out of touch with his party, the public, and, most critically, the moral authority embodied by the future king. Leadership credibility was in freefall, and the Labour Party faced the gravest internal crisis in decades. The coming week promised flashpoints, Parliament reconvening with 47 Labour MPs demanding an emergency debate, mass protests expected outside Westminster with tens of thousands attending, and Prince William's scheduled visit to a care home in Wales, every word he utters scrutinised for hidden criticism of government policy. The nation watches a direct clash of power, elected authority versus moral legitimacy, political arrogance versus royal compassion. Constitutional experts warn this could have consequences for decades, not just for the Labour Party, but for the balance of power between government and monarchy. So here's the question that matters: did Prince William just end Starmer's career in 7 minutes of truth, or did he overstep, giving Labour a possible victim card? Did he save pensioners from freezing, or trigger a constitutional crisis that could redefine the monarchy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share this story to cut through the media spin, and subscribe now, because tomorrow we reveal the leaked WhatsApp messages showing just how panicked Labour MPs really are. Britain may never be the same.